Okay, here we are again. Welcome. All right. This is session number 142 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Today we are beginning chapter 18, which is entitled The Passing of the Dream. Okay, and we will be in section 1, which is on page 372 of the text. Section 1 is entitled The Substitute Reality. All right, now in this chapter, Jesus is going to be talking about how the ego uses the world and the body. All right. And as I was looking things over, what was coming up for me was to keep in the back of your mind. I mean, always keep it, well, in the front of your mind. This text, all right, this work points out the machinations of the ego thought system. All right, that idea that we are separate from God. All right, and the idea of this course is to point it out. Not to condemn you, not to tell you, bad things about yourself. It's just to start to become aware of, oh, that's the ego thought system. That comes from thinking I'm separate from God. And then you make a choice. Do you want to continue like that? Or do you want to get closer to the realization of oneness, the realization of your relationship with God? And on the way there, you'll become more peaceful. You'll become happier. Think about that. Because when we think about the end, so to speak, meeting God, some people are going to start to freak. No, because you're still believing that God's going to punish you or something. He's going to smite you. But on the way, you keep choosing the oneness, keep choosing the truth, keep choosing peace of mind, and your load lightens up, you become happier and happier until you finally understand what everything is all about, and everything's okay. All right? So this is just to point out the machinations of the ego, not to condemn you or criticize you in any way. So that we learn to be observers, nonchalant, non-judgmental observers of what we're doing. Okay, enough said. Let's see what Jesus has to say, okay? The passing of the dream, the substitute reality. To substitute is to accept instead. If you would but consider exactly what this entails, you would perceive at once how much at variance this is with the goal the Holy Spirit has given you and would accomplish for you. To substitute is to choose between renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. For this special purpose, one is judged more valuable and the other is replaced by him. The relationship in which the substitution occurs is thus fragmented, and its purpose split accordingly. To fragment is to exclude, and substitution is the strongest defense the ego has for separation. All right. So to substitute is to accept instead. So what we have done, we have substituted realities. We have substituted the reality of the ego thought system of separation from God. We substitute it for the real thing, all right? For our relationship with God, which is the oneness. Right? He says, if you would but consider exactly what this entails, you would perceive at once how much at variance this is with the goal the Holy Spirit has given you, right, and would accomplish for you. All right, so this is just try to consider, just look at the ego and try to consider how much at variance the ego thought system is with the idea of the oneness, the truth of who you are, your relationship with God. The substitute is to choose between. For this special purpose, one is judged more valuable and the other is replaced by him. All right? We can always replace. We can replace people. Right? You can replace everything. You can always substitute one for the other. Oh, this is better. This will give me what I want. Oh, this didn't give me what I wanted. I get this. And on and on. We keep substituting. And thus we're fragmenting, which is what the ego does. All right? The ego keeps fragmenting, separating. All right? To prove its point that we're separated. And to keep us away from going into the mind where we can make a decision. All right? The ego's afraid of the decision. Okay, that's the only thing. Paragraph 2, the Holy Spirit never uses substitutes. Where the ego perceives one person as a replacement for another, the Holy Spirit sees them as joined and indivisible. He does not judge between them, knowing they are one. Being united, they are one because they are the same. Substitution is clearly a process in which they are perceived as different. One would unite, the other separate. Nothing can come between what God has joined and what the Holy Spirit sees as one. But everything seems to come between the fragmented relationships the ego sponsors to destroy. The ego sponsors these fragmented relationships to destroy the oneness, or to destroy our ability to go to the mind. All right? Which it can't really do, but it tries hard. All right? So substitution is clearly a process in which they are perceived as different. All right? So they're in the ego thought system, there has to be perceived differences. Right? In the oneness, there is no difference. All right. Jesus at one point describes it as a oneness joined as one. Okay? And the Holy Spirit sees everybody in the oneness. Okay? Although the Holy Spirit can use everything we've made here in this dream to help us get back to the truth, right? Because the Holy Spirit sees the truth, the oneness, right? Paragraph 3, the one emotion in which substitution is impossible is love. Fear involves substitution by definition, for it is love's replacement. Fear is both a fragmented and a fragmenting emotion. It seems to take many forms, and each one seems to require a different form of acting out for satisfaction. While this appears to introduce quite a variable behavior, a far more serious effect lies in the fragmented perception from which the behavior stems. No one is seen complete. The body is emphasized with special emphasis on certain parts and used as the standard for comparison of acceptance or rejection, for acting out of a special form of fear. All right? So the first thing we did was we substituted fear for love. All right? Once I thought I was able to separate from God, I said, oh no, I did something wrong. Now I'm afraid. So I substituted fear for the love that's really there. Right? And then it just keeps fragmenting. Okay? No one is seen as complete here. And by that he means no one is seen in the truth. Right? We see certain people and we emphasize certain parts, right? That, you know, give us criteria for acceptance or rejection. Okay? The body is emphasized in the ego thought system. The body is emphasized, right? With special emphasis on certain parts and used as the standard for comparison of acceptance or rejection for acting out a special form of fear. Right? And anybody that's listening, you know, as you've grown up and even in the present moment, you know, you will criticize your own body and you'll be afraid of somebody noticing. Right? You know, some of you are past that, but a lot are not, okay? And, you know, that's just one form of fear. You don't want to be criticized, you don't want to be ridiculed, you don't want to be ostracized, right? You don't want to be discriminated against. I mean, it gets heavier and heavier as you go on, because nobody is seen as complete. No one is seen as the great rays, the Son of God. No one is seen as the Christ consciousness. Everyone is seen as different. And it's, I think society is becoming more and more accepting of each other. Right? Although there are major portions of society who are fighting against that. But you can feel the tide is turning. I truly believe the younger generation is, excuse me, is more accepting of things than my generation was, and generations before me, believe me. All right? But everything gets based on the body. The body is emphasized. Right? You know, you don't look the same as us, so you can't live here. Oh, okay. And then, you know, you know what I'm saying. I mean, it goes on in your individual life, in the life of the family, in the life of the community. You know. And then you just go on, you know, city, state, country. All right? Bodies are emphasized. And they're used to the standard of comparison for acceptance or rejection. So, and then he says, you who believe that God is fear, you made but one substitution. It has taken many forms because it was the substitution of illusion for truth, of fragmentation for wholeness. It has become so splintered and subdivided and divided again over and over that it is now almost impossible to perceive it once was one and still is what it was. That one era which brought truth to illusion, infinity to time, and life to death was all you ever made. Your whole world rests upon it. Everything you see reflects it, and every special relationship that you have ever made is part of it. Right? Very powerful paragraph. Right? He says, you who believe that God is fear made one substitution. Right? And that substitution was the ego thought system of separation for the truth, for the oneness that is. All right? And we do it over and over, every moment, which is what he's trying to get us to notice. All right? He says, that's all you did. You made that one substitution. But it's fragmented. It's taken so many forms now. Right? It's become so splintered and subdivided that you can't recognize that it once was one. Right? And it still is. Because there's so many fragments, so much splintering off of that one idea. Oh, I separated from God. He says that one error, right? It brought truth to illusion. It miscreated the whole illusion. Right? It miscreated time. Right? It brought infinity to time. You are an infinite thought in the mind of God. But here we are thinking, all right, time is running out. For those of us who are a little older. All right? Everything depends on time. All right? And he says, and you brought life, which is what you really are, in your union with God, you are life. He says you brought life to death. All right? And the ego thought system, that thought of separation, that one thought did all of that. Right? No matter what it looks like, no matter how many times it's splintered and shattered, and it looks this way now and it looks that way now. It's the one thought. Remember, very early in the text, Jesus goes, one problem, one solution. This is the one problem. To believe that you could separate from God. I like the way he puts this in paragraph 5. You may be surprised to hear how very different is reality from what you say. You do not realize the magnitude of that one error. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it, a world of total unreality had to emerge. What else could come of it? Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough as you begin to look at them, but nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, which seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaninglessness bits of disunited perceptions, and to force you to make further substitutions. He says you might be surprised. All right? You might be surprised to hear how very different reality is, all right, from what you see. Okay? Because that one thought that I thought I could accomplish the separation. He says after that, he says, then you had to keep going, keep substituting things, right? You had to keep fragmenting. Right? It's so vast and so completely incredible, that one error, that from it a world of total unreality had to emerge. Right? So he keeps telling us so often that we are in an illusion. Right? And it's not that we are to all of a sudden stop and deny. It's just look at what we do believe. Look at what you do believe, right? And then ask for help in correcting that, right? We need the help. Otherwise the ego jumps in and starts correcting things, all right? Just making more substitutions. He says, but nothing you've seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, right, which seemed to cast you out of heaven. He says, that's a pretty enormous error. That's a pretty big mistake. It seemed to cast you out of heaven and to shatter knowledge, which is your milieu, right? To shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions. And to force you to make further substitutions. We're always moving from one place to, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. We're always substituting things. Right? And the idea is not to point the finger. You're not pointing the finger. It's just telling us, just look at what you're doing. Don't deny it. So it's not a way to get rid of it. It's not a way to change it. You can't deny. You have to look at the mistakes. The mistake and the mistakes. Until you realize that it's one mistake, right? You know, like they'll tell you in therapy, if you have a problem, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge the problem. You have to look at the problem, right? Don't be afraid of it. The problem's not going to kill you if you look at it, right? It's the repression that keeps it going, right? And it gets you. Paragraph 6. All right. So he's talking about it seemed to cast you out of heaven, this one mistake. All right. And shatter knowledge into little bits, meaningless bits of perceptions, and to force you to make further substitutions. Paragraph 6, he says, that was the first projection of error outward. All right. So we couldn't stand the guilt. What did I do? Oh my God. Because immediately when we turned our back on everything, what? He says, you can't grasp the enormity of that error. And we believed we did it. If we just would have looked at it and said, oh, that's silly. You can't separate from the mind of God. Everything would have been copacetic. Right? Which is what Jesus did, which is the part of the mind that Jesus represents. Jesus looked at it and said, no, that's silly, and went back to the oneness. All right? So Jesus is that part of our mind that symbolizes the fact that we realized it was silly, and we went back. But now we're living in the aftermath of that thought. But what happened was you feel that guilt, and you say, I gotta get rid of it. I can't stay in my mind. I'm gonna get destroyed, and we project outward. We project that thought of guilt outward. And he says, and the world arose to hide it. The world arose to hide the guilt. The world arose to hide the guilt over something I thought I did, something I thought I accomplished, right? Which I didn't in reality, but I thought I did. I believed it. Now I had to get rid of that. I said, oh my God, what did I do? I got to get out of here. I got to run. All right? And the world arose to hide my guilt. And that's what the world is for. And the world became the screen on which it was projected. My guilt was projected on that screen and drawn between you and the truth. So the world became the screen on which the guilt was projected and drawn between you and the truth. The truth extends inward, where the idea of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. Did you really think it's strange? Do you really think it's strange that a world in which everything is backwards and upside down arose from this projection of error? It was inevitable. For truth brought to this could only remain within and quiet, and take no part in all the mad projection by which this world was made. Call it not sin, but madness, for such it was, and so it still remains. Invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality. And above all, be not afraid of it. Right? Be not afraid of that thought that says, I believe I separated from God. Be not afraid of it. Look at it. Right? The monster is not in the closet. You can open the closet and look. Okay? So this is the world arose from the projection of guilt in order to hide the guilt. And that's the dynamics of the world. And Jesus is saying, don't be afraid to look at it. Don't condemn yourself. Right? Just look. That's the way out. Just look and say, oh, I'm doing that because the ego is my guide. Or, oh, that's the ego thought system. Any way you want to put it. Just don't condemn yourself. Right? No matter what you think you did, such big mistakes, whoa, such grievous sins, right? Because some authority, some organization told you that what you did was just unforgivable, and you better just wish and pray and do your best and sacrifice so that you don't get condemned to eternal damnation. But that's what happens. And we walk around with these feelings like, oh my God, what I did was so horrible. You're okay, all right? You did what you did out of fear. You have substituted fear for love, right? And fear takes many, many forms. So whatever you think you did, right, ask Jesus for help in correcting your vision of yourself, your perception of yourself. Ask Jesus, help me to understand. Help me to see myself correctly, because Jesus will never condemn you, nor will the other symbol, the Holy Spirit, never condemn you. All right? And they are reflections of God, so God will never condemn you. All right? No one's going to hell. Except that guy. No. No one. No one. And as I was talking, I was thinking it was a wonderful song, a collaboration between B.B. King and U2. And if, I did what I did before love came to town. All right? I love that song. And that's what Jesus is telling you. Don't condemn yourself. All right? You did what you did before love came to town. All right? You were unaware. You were still in the forest of fear. Now you're making your way out of it. And Jesus is going to take your hand and say, don't worry about it. Everything's okay, really. All right? Come with me, he says. And be my friend. All right? And I'll walk you through. And it'll be like you're walking through the garden. Okay, then. You never know when the musical references are going to pop up. All right, so he's telling us, just look at this world. It's got so many ways to hide the initial guilt of thinking that you separated from God. All right, just look and ask for correction. Every perception. That's the way to practice, and sooner or later, you get better at it, and you're quicker at it, and you become happier and happier, all right? and the people around you become happier too. All right? So, because he says the truth is quiet. It's on the inside. It's within. All right? For the truth brought to this could only remain within in quiet, and take no part in the mad projection by which the world was made. All right? The truth is inside. It's in that stately calm within, he's going to say. And you just have to visit it for a second, in case you're in a hurry, in case you're afraid of disappearing. All right? But the more you practice, the longer you'll want to stay in that truth, in the presence of truth. And your perceptions will change, and your reactions will change. Okay? So he says the truth doesn't want to take any part of the madness, doesn't want to engage. All right? So he says don't call it sin, because sin is that heavy word. Well, you committed a sin. All right? He says don't call it sin, it's madness. All right? And the mind was made mad by guilt. And the guilt is not real. And that's what we have to find out. You're not guilty. You are not guilty. Step down. Next case. All right, call it not sin, but madness, for such it was, and so it still remains. Invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished. All right? And above all, be not afraid of it. Right? Don't be afraid to look at the world and look at your actions and thoughts in the world. We want to change them. We want to become happier. All right? Paragraph 7. When you seem to see some twisted form of the original error rising to frighten you, say only, God is not fear, but love, and it will disappear. The truth will save you. It has not left you to go out into the mad world and so depart from you. Inward is sanity. Insanity is outside you. You but believe it is the other way. The truth is outside and the error and guilt within. Your little senseless substitutions, touched with insanity and swirling lightly off on a mad course, like feathers dancing insanely in the wind, they have no substance. They fuse and they merge and separate in shifting and totally meaningless patterns that need not be judged at all. To judge them individually is pointless. Their tiny differences in form are no real differences at all. None of them matters. That they have in common, and nothing else. Yet what is necessary to make them all the same? Yet what else is necessary to make them all the same? Okay? He's very poetically describing the world. Right? And he tells you, when some twisted form of the original error, some twisted form of guilt, the belief in separation, when it rises to scare you, all right, just keep reminding yourself that God is only love. God is not fear, but love. All right? I always think that it's a wonderful thing to tell children about God. You know, it's a wonderful primer to make the first thing they realize is God is never angry. All right? God is never angry. God is not fear, but love. All right? He says, the truth will save you. It has not left you. Right? It's not left you to go out into the mad world. It is always with you. It's always in your mind. The truth of who you are, the truth of your relationship with God is always with you. Right? This world does its best to block it, right? To make the static. Right? Inward is sanity, right? And outward is insanity. He says, but you believe it's the other way around. Okay? And now he describes the world, like I say, your senseless substitutions. Okay? Touched with insanity and swirling lightly off on a mad course like feathers dancing insanely in the wind, have no substance. So this whole world, which is a substitute for our existence with God, he says it has no substance. Don't let that scare you. Just keep it in the back of your mind, right? Because we believe it has a substance. That's what we're trying to correct, right? We don't all of a sudden put on the brakes. Say, I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe the world is real. All right. Well, watch yourself crossing the street. All right. You can't deny everything. You just have to bring it to the truth. Bring it to the mind. Bring it to Jesus. Say, help me to see it correctly. All right. And Jesus will help you get across the street peacefully. Okay. So he says, invest it not with guilt, right? Don't your thoughts, don't invest them with guilt, right? This thought that I separated from God, right? Because that would imply that you did it, right? And above all, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to look and ask me. Bring it to me, Jesus says. And we'll look at it together. We'll discuss it. And I'll show you the truth. We'll shine the light on it. Right? And even if you hate yourself, even if you hate yourself for what you did. Oh, I did this when I was younger. Right? Now it's shameful. It's horrible. It's unforgivable. Jesus will tell you, no, don't worry. You are forgivable. You are forgiven already, right? What you did was you were acting in fear, right? You were acting according to what you thought the world was all about, right? And you did what you did before love came to town, right? You did what you did before you realized that God is with you and he's always loving, and Jesus is with you as his representative, as his reflection, as the reflection of who you really are. Okay. He says, none of this matters, he says. All right? He says, and that's what they have in common. Everything in this world has that in common. It doesn't matter. What else is necessary to make them all the same? He says that's all you need to make them all the same. They don't matter. Right? Even things that you think are nice, all right? You just ask Jesus, always, help me to see correctly. Help me to see peacefully. Right? So he says that the whole world is just silly, and it's an illusion, and it doesn't matter. Everything in it. And in paragraph 8, he says, let them all go. Let it all go. All these substitutions, all these things, all these perceptions, let them go. Dancing in the wind, dipping and turning till they disappear from sight, far, far outside of you, and turn you to the stately calm within, wherein holiness still dwells, the living God you never left and who never left you. The Holy Spirit takes you gently by the hand and retraces your mad journey outside yourself, leading you gently back to the truth and safety within. He brings all your insane projections and the wild substitutions that you have placed outside you to the truth. Thus, he reverses the course of insanity and restores you to reason. I think that's just such a wonderful, beautiful paragraph, all right? And in the poetic descriptions of what we were just talking about, no matter what you think you did, all right, turn you to the stately calm within, where in that holiness still dwells the living God you never left. God is in your mind and your thought. It says, turn to that part of your mind, that stately calm, right? Where in holy stillness dwells the living God you never left. Okay? And who never left you. All right? And the Holy Spirit takes you gently by the hand and retraces your mad journey outside yourself. All right? The Holy Spirit will look at that journey with us and correct it, correct our perceptions. All right? He brings all your insane projections and the wild substitutions. He brings it all to the truth, where it's undone. So you don't have to hate yourself anymore. You don't have to think you're guilty. All right? Because that guilt is only a reflection of the original guilt. All right? And the Holy Spirit, Jesus, will undo it for us. Thus, he reverses the course of insanity and restores you to reason. Right? And as we practice, we are restored more and more to reason. And the insanity slowly slips away until it slips away in big chunks. All right? Paragraph 9. In your relationship with your brother, where he has taken charge of everything at your request, he has set the course inward to the truth you share. In the mad world outside you, nothing can be shared, but only substituted. And sharing and substituting have nothing in common in reality. Within yourself, you love your brother with a perfect love. Here is holy ground in which no substitution can enter, and where only the truth in your brother can abide. Here you are joined in God, as much together as you are with him. The original error has not entered here, nor ever will. Here is the radiant truth to which the Holy Spirit has committed your relationship. Let him bring it here, where you would have it be. Give him but a little faith in your brother to help him show you that no substitute you made for heaven can keep you from it. Okay? All right. So bring your perceptions to the Holy Spirit, to Jesus. All right? Your relationship with your brother, where he has taken charge of everything at your request, where the Holy Spirit has taken charge of everything at your request. Help me to see correctly. That's my request. Help me to see my brother correctly. All right. So the Holy Spirit sets the course inward to the truth that you share with your brother. The truth that you share with your brother is that you're not separated from God. You are a part of the same thought of love. That's the truth you share. Okay? So he says, within yourself, you love your brother with a perfect love. Right? Because he is you. And you are that perfect love. Right? So within yourself, you love your brother with perfect love. Here is holy ground, right, in which no substitution can enter, and where only the truth in your brother can abide. So in that part of the mind, right, it says no substitutions can enter there, none of the nonsense. Right? The truth about you and your brother abides there. And here you're joined in God as much together as you are with him. So you're joined with your brother just as you're joined with God. Right? Trying to use words to describe the indescribable, but it's the union, the oneness. Right? And it's possible once we have that request, help me to see correctly. That's my request. So the original error has not entered here, nor ever will. In that part of the mind, the thought of separation will never enter. The belief in separation. It will never enter. And everything is seen in the light of truth. So, here is the radiant truth to which the Holy Spirit has committed your relationship. Let him bring it here, where you would have it be. Right? That's what you really want. Is to bask in the truth. Give him but a little faith in your brother to help him show you that no substitute you made for heaven can keep you from it. All right, so just give him a little faith. Give the Holy Spirit and Jesus a little faith. Help me to see correctly. I'm willing. I'm willing to see the truth about my brother. Let him show you that no substitute you made for heaven can keep you from it. No substitute can keep you from the truth. All right? So, in you there is no separation, paragraph 10. In you there is no separation, and no substitute can keep you from your brother. Your reality was God's creation and has no substitute. You are so firmly joined in truth that only God is there. And he would never accept something else instead of you. He loves you both equally and as one. And as he loves you, so you are. You are not joined together in illusions, but in the thought, so holy and so perfect that illusions cannot remain to darken the holy place in which you stand together. God is with you, my brother. Let us join in him in peace and gratitude and accept his gift as our most holy and perfect reality, which we share with him. Okay? Very, very powerful. In you there is no substitution. There's no separation. Right? There is no separation from God. Okay? No substitute can keep you from your brother. You are the same. You are part of that thought. You're part of God. Thoughts don't leave the mind that thought them. All right? You are so firmly joined in truth that only God is there. You should read these words and let them just sink in. Right? You're so firmly joined in truth that only God is there. That's our reality. That's our reality. You're not joined together in illusions, but in a thought so holy and so perfect that illusions cannot remain to darken the holy place in which you stand. Right? The illusions, they can't remain there. They just go poof. The light of truth shines them away. And he puts that little declarative sentence, which is so wonderful. And think about it. Hold it with you in your heart and your mind. He says, God is with you, my brother. Let us join in him in peace and gratitude and accept his gift as our most holy and perfect reality, which we share with him. All right, God is with you. That is our reality, not this substitute reality. Paragraph 11. Heaven is restored to all the sonship through your relationship. For in it lies the sonship, whole and beautiful, safe in your love. Heaven has entered quietly, for all illusions have been gently brought unto the truth in you, and love has shined upon you, blessing your relationship with truth. God and his whole creation have entered it together. How lovely and how holy is your relationship, with the truth shining upon it. Heaven beholds it and rejoices that you have let it come to you. And God himself is glad that your relationship is as it was created. The universe within you stands with you, together with your brother, and heaven looks with love on what is joined in it, along with its creator. All right. When we go to that place in the mind, and we, at our request, help me to see correctly, all right, heaven is restored there, all right, in that instant. All right. Heaven is restored. Heaven has entered quietly. God and his whole creation have entered it together. How lovely and how holy is your relationship, with truth shining upon it. Then, I believe in one of the books, how many teachers does it take to save the world? Paraphrasing. And the answer is one. Right? Just that one. That because there is only one mind, the one mind comes to the realization of truth. Right? And the world is transformed. All right? And heaven rejoices. Paragraph 12. Whom God has called should hear no substitutes. Their call is but an echo of the original era that shattered heaven. And what became of peace in those who heard? Return with me to heaven, walking together with your brother out of this world and through another to the loveliness and joy the other holds within it. Would you still further weaken and break apart what is already broken and hopeless? Is it here that you would look for happiness? Or would you not prefer to heal what has been broken and join in making whole what has been ravaged by separation and disease. Okay? So whom God has called should hear no substitutes. Right? It's because the substitutes, all right, are but an echo of the original era that shattered heaven, or so it seems. And he says, and what became of peace in those who heard? So what became of peace in those of us who believed were separated? He says, you're no longer at peace. You're already running around like a shrew. All right? And Dr. Wapnick has a 2-volume set. It's called, one book is called All Are Called. And then the other volume is called Few Choose to Listen. So everyone is called, right? Whom God has called should hear no substitutes. All right? Everyone is called. Because all these substitutes in the world are just an echo of the original era, the belief in separation. So he says, and is it here in the world that you would look for happiness? Right? Or would you not prefer to heal what has been broken? Right? Wouldn't you rather heal that split mind? Okay. Is it here that you would look for happiness, or would you not prefer to heal what has been broken and join in making whole what has been ravaged by separation and disease? All right? Separation and disease, the ego thought system. All right? So wouldn't you rather just heal the mind? Bring everything to that part of the mind that remembers the original truth. All right. Paragraph 13, you have been called together with your brother to the most holy function this world contains. It is the only one that has no limits and reaches out to every broken fragment of the sonship with healing and uniting comfort. This is offered you in your holy relationship. Accept it here, and you will give as you have accepted. The peace of God is given you with the glowing purpose in which you join with your brother. The holy light that brought you and him together must extend as you accepted it. So the holy light will extend with our willingness to see our brother correctly. He says, you're called, along with your brother, to the most holy function this world contains, and that is forgiveness. Right? The letting go of projections and having perception changed. All right? That's the most holy function this world can have, is forgiveness, realizing the innocence of everything. And we don't do that, can't do that by ourselves. All right? We need to ask Jesus, Holy Spirit, or whatever symbol of unconditional love you use. All right? This course never claims to be the one and only way home. All right? It's just that it's good for most of us to, pick a boat. Don't have your foot in two different boats at the same time. All right? So you have been called. All right? And your reality is God's creation. And in actuality, there is no substitute. All right? So many beautiful paragraphs in this section. Right? So many powerful, powerful paragraphs to tell you who you are. Right? And don't be afraid of the process. Don't be afraid to look at the ego. Oh, look what I did. Look what I did when I was 16. All right, look what I did. Look what I did when I was 20. All right, it was horrible. I can't tell anybody about it. All right, bring it, because you don't need that burden of guilt. All right, be not afraid. All right, don't be afraid to look at it. All right, and look at it with Jesus, who is always loving. Will never judge. The Holy Spirit doesn't judge. Right? He merely looks and waits and judges not. Right? So bring it all and remember that you are always with God. That's one of those wonderful sentences again. All right? God is always with you. Okay, there's as we used to say in massage theory, the change of consciousness breath. All right, my friends, thank you. Thank you for listening. And once again, if you have any questions or comments, message me on either YouTube or Facebook. Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles, same title for the pages. And for a greater in-depth study of the Course, you go right to the source, the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, FACIM. Right? It contains all the writings and lectures of Dr. Kenneth Wapnick, the premier teacher of Course in Miracles. All righty then. See you next time. Bye now.